Hello, friends. A long, long time ago in a galaxy quite far away, but still quite close as well. My father took me on a Saturday afternoon to watch a football game, which started at 3:15, which was a bit strange because every other game in the country started at 3 p.m. And the team lost. The game was awful. It was cold, but I completely fell in love with it. Everything about it, the smell of cigarettes and cigars, the sound of grown men swearing and insulting the linesman and the referee. And now it's been 43 years that I've been hooked on Tranmere Rovers. And I thought that today it would only be normal, nothing would be more normal than to find another Tranmere Rovers fan who also doesn't necessarily live today anywhere near the ground, and also somebody that I've never met before. So it's a challenge for me as well. And to ask the question, why Tranmere fans?
So, Mr. Gidman, welcome.
Hello. Oh
Now, a couple of things.
yeah.
I was looking at your CV before, and a couple of things kind of punched me in the face. The first one was that you were in Lincoln and not physically in Birkenhead, that kind of answered the story. The second one, I saw words like algebra and trigonometry and further algebra, words which strike horror into my heart. So you're a big maths man.
Yeah, no, I do. I picked up like I turned 30 and wanted some direction,
Mhm.
and I'd been in a retail management, well, sports retail management, for pretty much all my working life.
Mhm.
And I wanted to change the direction. So yeah, I turned 30 and I decided that I was going to do a computer science degree.
Saw that.
Uh, so yeah, that obviously included quite intense mathematics.
Did you start from zero and learn it on the job, or were you already good in maths and it was just a case of kind of validating it?
It was it was kind of just a completely fresh start.
Yeah.
My dad was like heavily into networking and computers,
Mm.
and much how like kids are, we try and rebel against our parents. So I didn't want to do what my dad was doing. Uh, so no, I left school with like a C in maths, and it wasn't until like I hit uni where I was doing like advanced maths papers.
Hmm.
Uh, Deep down, I guess I've always had like a massive passion for like numbers. I mean, it's part and parcel of being a football fan. A lot of like our love is numbers and possibilities, probabilities, and permutations, all numerical.
Still
Uh,
27 points to go and only 11 points off and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
oh yeah.
It's the hope that kills you. Now, we're here today, and the WTF is why Tranmere, let's say why Tranmere fans, so that we don't start off swearing immediately. It's a curse, isn't it, basically?
It's definitely not a glory hunting exercise, is it? Let's be honest with us.
Yeah. So how did it happen for you? What was the first game?
I can't tell you who the first game was.
Hmm.
I can tell you when it was. It was the late 80s.
Right.
And I remember it. So I was born, well, at Arrow Park Hospital.
Right.
And my bedroom over was a stone's throw away from Prenton Park, and I could
Hmm.
see floodlights from my bedroom window as a child growing up.
Nice.
I remember, yeah, my dad took me to my first game. Obviously, we scored. Everyone goes all euphoric, and I start crying. So the big bloke that's next to me, next to 3-year-old me, starts trying, it's all right, we've scored. And I'm horrified by just like the noise, the riot. I've never experienced anything like it.
Mm.
Uh, as you don't until that first time. I was probably a bit blasé about it, walking into the pitch, because all I can remember is the sheer terror running through me, uh, with like the rapture of when we actually scored.
Was this
Little would I know
probably
back then,
John
it'd be
King
the
or
thing that
Frank
I crave.
Worthington? When about was that? In the
I
good times
reckon
or
it
the
would
bad
have been
times?
just before the good times,
All
just
right.
before the good times. So I'm going to guess and go on a limb and say it was the 88-89 season, which would have made me 3-4, obviously
Right.
before like the Cups of success,
Yeah,
and
okay.
before talking about like the trip to the moon. I reckon that
you
was.
just aged me by about 1,000 years because I've got my. You probably can't see it. I've got my press pass from 1988, 1989, where I was already an adult. That's very depressing. Thanks for that.
I'm getting there. I'm catching up now.
Yeah, in
Age
15
is a
years you'll be
funny
like this.
thing.
There'll be nothing on your head in a few years. Yeah, yeah. My first game was in 1981. 7, 8 years old. My dad took me as well, and I was also petrified. Not so much by the noise. I loved the smoke and the swearing and all that kind of stuff. That was great. My father and his family were from Clifford Street in the North End, and it made me feel as though I was sharing some Birkenhead thing with my dad. So it was his heritage that I was sharing. I could feel that straight away. It was really
Yeah.
totally different from everything else happening outside. And it was against, I can't remember exactly who it was against, but I remember that the away fans were in the paddock. They used to be in the paddock, so just to the left of where the players were out. Well, that was where the away fans were. And they turned around and started climbing up and starting a fight with the supporters, the Tranmere supporters in the main stand. Not very many, like 1,200 or so, and seats flying everywhere. So I was also petrified.
Yeah, it'll get you like that. Football's changed for the better in that respect.
Probably. So that was the first time. But when did it become an addiction? When did it become problematic? I can't not look at the result. I've got to go.
I think, like I said, it was quite difficult because it would have been about 94 that I came across to Lincoln with my dad. And if you remember consuming your football back then, if you weren't in the terraces, there was no internet.
Yeah.
It's horrifying to think like how we consume our football. So I was almost a CFAX football fan. You'd watch the results come in that way. And we literally would, like on a Saturday afternoon, you'd have CFAX on and you'd watch the results come in. Unfortunately, not long after moving to Lincoln, my parents actually split up.
Right.
And so just even getting that slice of home football was nigh and impossible. So unless it was like a Sky Sports game, and how many times did they pick Tranmere games back in the day? I was literally stuck to the CFAX consumption of the sport. I was stuck to that kind of, similar to what you were saying before. A lot of it comes from your identity, and especially when you're young and impressionable, and you want to be part of something, and it's not totally taken away, but obviously it was difficult for, I couldn't have expected my dad to do the drive back. Like,
I checked, it's 2 hours, 50 minutes or something, isn't it? It's a long drive.
That's now. Can you imagine what it used to be?
What it depends on the car.
It was a precarious trip right across the country. So we didn't get back, and it was stepping into my adulthood. That's when I was properly able to get it back. There used to be a time I used to be able to tip up to the games with like anonymity. Nobody'd know who I was back then. I'd just throw myself into the crowd. And there was something really humbling to just be with my people, sing some songs. And
we've lost a lot of the rude songs, haven't we? I remember some of the really, really rude songs in the cowsheds. Something with Al Jolson at the end or in the middle somewhere, but I haven't heard that one for years and years and years. That was a fantastic song. Well, at the same time that you were kind of looking at CFAX, I arrived in France, so I was about 20, 21, and it was even worse. So the only thing I could do was phone the club. So I ended up going out, finding a phone box, putting pranks in the telephone, like maybe 10 quid, and asking, and they would answer and say, "Hello, Tranmere Rovers Football Club." Say, "Just give us the score, please." They say, "It hasn't finished yet, love. Sorry." Or Oh, I don't know. It's still on. I'll go and ask, and I'd be there for 10 minutes putting money in the phone. And then they'd say, "Oh, we lost. I'm sorry, love." And they kind of got to know me because I was phoning up every Saturday for about 2 years before internet. Can
That
you
is
believe that?
that is a way to consume your foot. I always thought I was hard pressed with my CFAX, but that's dedication.
There was no other way. It's not going to be on the radio. There was no internet. That's it. That's the only way. You couldn't even have Radio Merseyside or something because all of this stuff
No.
didn't exist, So, but then the internet. So this season, how many games have you been to, home or away?
Um, I was saying it's the cost of getting to the games, the
It's
cost of
really
getting back
expensive.
home,
Yeah,
because it's never just your match ticket. I
no,
mean,
no.
for me to get back home, just on train tickets alone, because partner works most weekends anyway. We're talking about 100 quid.
Yeah.
So this season, I've been to home once.
Which one?
We do a charity game
Oh, that one.
annually
Okay, of course. Yeah, yeah.
around February time. So of all the games to come home to, it was when we beat Stockport County 4-0.
Brilliant.
And that was amazing. I'd say altogether, I'm probably on about 10, 11 games this season.
That's pretty good.
So it's easier to get away. Like it's cheaper for me to get down to London than it is to get back to Birkenhead, which
Wow.
in itself is a mystery because the only reason to go to Birkenhead is to watch Tranmere.
Might be cheaper taking a plane. What's the nearest airport? And try and get a plane to Manchester or something. You never know. There are stranger things. So here's a question for you: how can this basically the same players who were absolutely awful in the first 10 games beat Stockport County 4-0 and then be absolutely awful in the game immediately after that? Where does that come from?
If you know the answer to that, then you could save the club a lot of money in re-recruitment. It's I don't know. I honestly can't fathom it. It's the way that we were playing. It was a couple of weeks before, it was at Doncaster. Doncaster were on a team on the down, and Rovers seemed to be on the ascendancy. And Doncaster, for a team that had been struggling, they carved through us, and it was so frustrating. So then to watch us against Stockport and just be absolutely superb against Stockport,
Best game in 10 years almost. It's just amazing.
and then to lose the subsequent 2 games after. Yeah, it was so frustrating. It was. I'm not sure if it's a confidence thing, because they've got to have belief. I mean, they're good enough to have like professional football player on the CV. I think it's the margins that we're dealing with that we don't have like a superstar player, although we do have Rob Apter, who is like the lower league Lionel Messi.
He's Johnny Morrissey, isn't he? It's the same kind of thing. Imagine two of them, one on the right, one on the left.
Oh my word, Johnny Morrissey and Pat Nevin.
Oh wow, that was great. Yeah, Johnny Morrissey was
Yeah.
just something else. Every time he got the ball, you were excited. And it's the same with Rob Apter, but he's basically the only one. It's difficult to get. It's inconsistency, isn't it? They can be really good, and they can also be really bad, and they can't do it for more than 4 games before they get really bad again. And that's why they're in League Two, I suppose.
I was going to say that's going to be it. It's like we have to remember sometimes that we are a League Two football team. So the margins for error are incredible.
It's funny,
and I guess consistency as well.
When we were in the what was it called then? The second division or the championship? I don't know what it was called at the time.
First division, wasn't it?
Was it the first division? And knocking on the door
first division.
3 or 4 years. The crowd, it was a bit bigger. It was probably 8,000-9,000 every week, but it wasn't radically bigger than it is today. It's not like we went from 15 to 2 or something. So there's a hardcore of fans. It must be very strange for people who started watching Tranmere then when they were in the first division to get used to what is happening today. Whereas if you started when we were in there already, it's just par for the course, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I mean, often it's the age-old question. It's nowadays, would you want your team in the Premier League
I don't know. Is it better to support Everton, who are in the Premier League every season but awful every year, or to support Tranmere, where you've always got a bit of hope and it usually doesn't come off? But what do you reckon?
It's there's an honest way to do it, and I like the honesty and the way that we do it, and I'd much rather, it's easy to say because I am a Tranmere fan.
Mm,
You ask me the question, why Tranmere?
mm,
And I often think that when I hear people say, "Oh, I support this team and I support that team," and I'm like, "Why them?" And I think about it, it's like, "Oh, why am I a Tranmere fan?" But yeah, it's I'd rather, I'd rather the way that we go about our business. I'd rather our identity.
mhm,
I mean, it's well documented, like Everton's financial irregularities this season, like the
mhm,
Premier League's financial irregularities this season. And for what? For what? We're talking about ridiculous sums of money. The country's in recession.
mm,
Where's your pride? They've spent all this money to be beneath mediocre in their division.
mm,
There's no honesty about it anymore. Had
mhm,
when Tranmere were knocking on the door, okay, we were bankrolled by a generous chairman who
yeah,
was up against it. When we were knocking on the doors of the Premiership back
yeah,
as it was then, there was an honesty about what we were doing. We were trying to get up there
mm,
with within our own means,
yeah,
so to speak, especially after being so close to extinction. I was too young to really remember like the financial issues of the last time, but the story still resonates now. And there's an honesty about the way that we go about things. There's an honesty about our club anyway, in the way that it supports the community. And I
mhm.
think that's really, really important as our identity. Uh,
That comes back to where we started. Our dad's taken us, and the fact that it gives us a connection to that heritage and that identity. Tranmere was never posh, even when they were in the first division. It was
no,
always Tranmere. I mean, who was the record signing? Sean Teal. It was about 250 grand. I mean, that's not.
yeah,
That's
from
not.
Aston Villa, wasn't he?
He hated it, didn't he? He was bad mouthing us or something, saying it was a joke or whatever. And where did he end up? Southport or something? I can't remember. But anyway, tonight we're playing the league leaders again, and at home again. I guess you're going to be watching on iFollow.
Oh yes.
Me too. The team has probably come out, but I haven't had a look yet. What do you think? I mean, it's impossible to say, but what do you think's going to happen, and who do you hope will not be playing?
See, I'm very, very, very close to my chest with that. Who do I hope won't be
Oh yeah,
playing?
you're right. It's not
Because
fair because you know them, and it's not fair on them, is it? Yeah, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
no,
So,
I don't. Is the way that I fan
mm,
is I don't want to be like too overly negative about an individual,
mm,
especially when it's like a really small fishbowl. So what I hope is the last time that we played top of the league at Prenton Park, we won 4-0. Uh, the last time we played Mansfield, actually, that was a cracking game. We probably should have won that. It finished 2-2 in the end.
that's right. They kind of came back on us the same way Gillingham did in the last 10, 15 minutes, didn't they?
Yeah.
We, we
And that
we
was
don't
it
seem
as
to be
well.
pushed that away. Gillingham.
Gillingham have been a stunning team. The way that they played their football as well in the second half.
And we don't seem to be able to snuff that stuff out when they start passing it from side to side and people in the middle. We've got a big problem with that. We kind of fall back and we let them do it, and we defend like hell, and it's great. And the defending was actually really kind of sterling and impressive.
Yeah.
Balls all over the place in your in your face and everything. Um, but we need to find a way of stopping them getting so close and being able to dictate the play. I think it was MK Dons who did it at the start of the season. We were 2-1 up, and you just knew that it was going to fall apart because they were just all over us, and it was just an accident waiting
Oh,
to happen.
even like that game early at the start of the season at MK Dons. I mean, we lost that 1-1 nil. And we probably matched them, to be fair. That was one of the Ian Dawes early games.
Mm.
We probably matched them, but didn't have like the ammunition to actually take the game.
Which one am I
But
thinking of then? What was the game we scored a bit early? Then they scored. Then we scored again. It was 2-1, and we thought, okay, this is fine. But then we ended up losing 3-2 or 4-2 at home. It was in the
Wasn't
first
South?
couple
No,
of games. Yeah.
it wasn't Salford, was it? I can't remember now.
Mm.
I'm going to go back as soon as we're done with this, and I'm going to go through it
Yeah.
because I know exactly which game you're on about. Yeah.
Yeah. And that seemed to be the kind of recipe for at least the first quarter of the season, but it's definitely improved since.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Since we got like Nigel Adkins in, oh my word.
Have you met him? Have you spoken to him?
I've not personally met him or
No.
spoke to him, but
Seems like a nice bloke.
yeah, he does. He's the kind of bloke that you want to do well and you can hang off his word. He just seems like a really, really nice guy. And there's so many, for want of a better word, there's so many knobs in football at the
You can't say
moment.
knobs on my podcast.
Sorry.
I'm joking. You can. My mother will hear this and
Oh,
say, he said knobs.
knobs.
Damn it.
But no, there's so many bad eggs in football at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's not,
Mm.
he seems like a really sincere, genuine guy.
Mhm.
It, you just you can't help but like will him to do well.
Mhm.
Uh,
Do you
it
think
just yeah, like
the ultra positivity was a bit tough going at the start for them because they were in such a mess, and you got this bloke coming in saying very clear stuff on the team and the art of war, and you do this and elite levels, and he repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats, and sooner or later you probably think, oh, sorry, I'm just going to go along with this, because he's always saying the same thing.
yeah, he's got a rhetoric, but
Mm.
for me and the fan base, it's not boring. It's very clear.
Yeah.
I feel like especially the games where we have lost, you close 1-0s, and then he'll come out in the press conference after and he'll explain why he tried to do something. I mean, we had like people like Keith Hill, like established like a football manager. And I love Mickey Mellon as much as the next person,
Mm.
but the press conferences at the end sometimes they could be clear as mud. Whereas I think that's the beauty with Nigel. You feel like you learn something
Mm.
as and when he's talking. And I think as a fan, if I'm learning something about the game as and when he's explaining and talking,
Mm.
then surely that's going to resonate with the players. And look, it's hard going, like being a Tranmere fan, like some of the football we've had to
Very.
endure. I mean, I clocked at the start of like last season, I'd done over 500 miles to see us accumulate a grand total of no points.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
And the football was turgid, honestly. It was
It
rubbish.
was absolutely awful. It was going nowhere at all.
The start of last season, and then this season since Nigel's come in, the table's out. Since he's taken the job on full time, we would have been fourth in the table, and you can see it with the football that we usually play.
Mm-hmm.
It's ambitious, it's domineering, it's aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and I think those games like that we've struggled is when we get like the bravery taken out of how we play. And I think having the bravery, especially down in, the lower divisions where we are, like bravery and the camaraderie as well. It's how many times have we got to the end of a season recently? I mean, it was a few years ago we had Peter Clark come out, the club captain at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that there was bad eggs in the dressing room. Roll forward and there's different people calling out bad people. Keith Hill did it before he left, said there was people not willing to try.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually feels like our team right now is a unit and there is a belief system in like what they can achieve and what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself is really, really nice because I love this squad. Like from one to whatever number they run up to at the
32.
moment. You know,
It's
you,
problematic because people are talking about definitely don't. I know I'm not going to comment either, but definitely don't keep him. Don't keep him. Keep him. Keep him. This kind of stuff. But actually, every single one of them when they've come in has been really good. All of them have had off days as well.
yeah.
But it's really tough after Stockport, for example. You would say we want exactly this same team, all of them next season. Don't add anybody. Don't take anybody away. Just find somebody for the right. And then they have a
Yeah.
bad game, and everybody says, "Oh, I would only keep one centre back and maybe the keeper." It's a really tough one.
It's hard as well. Like I said, like that goldfish ball is so tiny, and they will see it. And I think sometimes it's easy for people to forget that not only are they football players, you know, the football players that play for our club, they're also human beings.
Absolutely.
And some of them won't be on much more than on that much money. So we're not talking.
We don't really know. How much do you reckon? What's the lowest? I mean, is it speculation,
Well,
or do we have some figures?
I don't know. I'd be speculating, but you can imagine some French players, they won't be on that much more than minimum wage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's not like we're a money bags club. It's not like we overspend. It's probably been our undoing at certain points where we've missed out on, deals to secure better players. Obviously, the really good players in the squad, you can imagine that they are on decent money, but we're not talking about prima donnas on even the championship standard of wages, it's horrific.
It's not what it's really good, or it's not really good
Oh, no, it'd be really, really good.
because they're all coming
It'd
on
be
for
unreal. So the jump up in wage, I mean, you guess if you start off at a position at the lower end of the scale to actually work up, hone your craft, then you can command that higher wage. But the people that are going to play for us, they're not going to be on ridiculous money.
No,
And like I said, I'd seen something earlier when I was scrolling through my social media where somebody was saying, "Oh, what would you do with this player? Would you release him, let him go?" And it's it's all right, but at the end of the day, the person that you're talking about,
it's probably
the
real.
footballer that you're talking about, is a person with feelings and emotions, and it must be hard sometimes to G yourself up to play for a crowd when they hate you.
Well, let's make it easier then. The only person I don't want in the team tonight would be Joe Murphy playing up front. There you go. I think we can both agree. We can both agree on that.
I bet he could do a job though.
I don't have too many left-footed players in this team, but that's my only criticism. I think there's a lot of left-footed players that sometimes they keep coming inside and they can't take it the other way because there's so much happening on the left. But I'm allowed to make that one small critique. I lost my hair because of Tranmere Rovers, and probably
So
other
yeah.
parts of my body as well. Phil, it's been wonderful talking to you. Thanks very much.
No, bless you, mate.